Editing something is a lot like creating something. You display a form, you submit the form, and then we do something with that submitted data. The main difference, however, is that when you're editing, you are working with pre-existing data. So we need to take that into account. But we can take what we did in the previous lesson and use that as a basis for our editing. And that's going to give us a lot, actually. So let's just do that. I'm going to copy the create controller, and I am renaming that copy to edit. We'll do the same thing for the view. So we'll copy the create view, and then we will just simply rename it to edit.view.php. So that is at least a lot of stuff that we don't have to do. Now let's look at the controller. We still want to check if we have a post request. We still want to sanitize the term and definition. We still want to validate that, make sure that we have something to work with. But in this case, we aren't going to add the term. We are going to update the term. So let's go ahead and make that change. Let's comment that out because we don't have that function yet, but we will eventually get there. Let's also comment out the redirect. But we also need to do something for a GET request because whenever we go to our form, we need to know what term that we want to edit so that we can populate our form. So we need to handle a GET request as well. And we could just come in here and say else and then write our GET stuff. However, I don't like that for a couple of reasons. For one, this means that we have to think about what's going on. Okay, is post, then we do this, else, okay, get request, then we would do get request there. So there's that, but there's also, thinking forward, if we wanted to make this a fully RESTful experience, if we had a RESTful API, then we would have more than just get and post. There are other HTTP methods that we could use. So let's write a function that's going to check if it is a GET request. Let's go to app and then functions. And somewhere around where we wrote is post, let's just copy and paste that. We will change the name to is get, and we will compare with get. So there we go. And this way, it's very explicit. So if is get, as we are reading this, we know that, okay, this is for the get request, this is for the post request. So if it is a GET request, we need something from the query string to know what term to display in the form. Now, we can't use the word term because that's already going to be part of the request that's coming from the form itself. So let's use something else like key. So we will essentially do the same thing. We will call our sanitize function, and then we will pass in get key. That's going to sanitize that, and then we could validate it. If it's empty, well, then we don't really need to do anything at all, do we? We can just issue a 404, just like what we did with the detail page. So let's do that. Let's go and copy the view not found, and then we will die. Well, we won't die. The program will die, and we'll be good to go there. Otherwise, we want to get our term. So let's say term equals, and then get term. We pass in our key, and then we will call our view function and pass in the view for edit, and then the model term. Now, we do need to check if we have a term. So let's do that. And I don't remember what that returns. Does it return anything? Yes, it returns false. So if term is equal to false, then we will do the same thing. Now, from a code perspective, this is just repetition. And we could do something like this to where we get our term, and then if key is empty, or if term is equal to false, does it actually return false? We need to check. Because if it does, then I'm going to use the strict check. So gets term, yes, it actually returns false. So let's do this there. Okay, so we could do it like this. And from a code perspective, that's cleaner. However, from a performance perspective, it's not. Because in order to get our term, we are doing something on the file system. We are reading a file, we are converting that JSON into something that we can use within our PHP, and then we are attempting to get a value. So performance-wise, it's better to, first of all, check if we have the key. If we don't, then it's not found. We don't do anything else. Otherwise, then we can see if we have an actual term, and I lost that code. So term equals get term, and then we pass in the key. So performance, yes. Code cleanliness, no. But in this case, we want performance over code cleanliness. So if we have a term, then we send that information to the view. So let's go to our view, and we will populate our term and our definition. So we want to set the value for our term to be equal to whatever is in our model. So we will say model and term. And then for the text area, we will essentially do the same thing, except that it will be the definition. So here, definition. And that should be enough. Let's change the submit button to edit term, or just edit. And let's also change the title up at the top. So edit term. So let's see what this looks like in the browser. Although we don't have a link there, do we? So we could do one of two things. Let's go to the index view for our admin. We could add a column that's going to have an edit link. And I actually like that better than having a link on the term name itself. So we will do this, and we will say edit. We will close the A element, and there we go. Although we don't want to go to detail, we want to go to edit.php, and the term is not going to be used, it's going to be key. So let's refresh this. We have our edit link. So let's edit JSON, and we have two forms. That is because inside of our controller, for a GET request, we say view admin edit and then create. We need to get rid of the create. So there we go. Let's go back. Let's refresh. And we are at least populating the form with our information. Now, whenever we submit, we need to know a couple of things. We need, first of all, the key, once again, because if we're going to edit a term, we need to know what term that we are going to edit. We can't just rely upon what was given to us in the form, because we could change the name of the term here. If we change this to JSON1, well, then we don't have anything to match that with inside of our data store. So we can then look once again at our key and use that as what we are going to edit. Another option would be to put that value inside of the form itself in the form of a hidden field. And that would probably be the better thing to do. So why don't we do that? We'll add an input element type hidden. The value is going to be the same as our key, or our term rather. So let's just copy that and paste it in, but we need to give this a name. And the name can be original term or something like that. I like that. So we'll say original term. And let me make sure original term is spelled correctly. It is. So let's self-close that. I mean, we still could rely upon the URL, but the only thing about that is that the URL can be changed. And, the hidden field can be changed as well, but at least the hidden field is hidden. So that's my thought process behind that. So for a post request, we also want to get the original term. So we will say original underscore term. We're going to sanitize the post and then original dash term. And we need to add that to our check here. If this is empty, then we definitely don't want to continue on. So we want empty original term. And if any one of these three are missing, then we will not do anything. Otherwise, we will update our term. We need to know what our original term is, so we will pass that as the first argument, and then term, and then definition. Okay, so let's write this function. Let's go to our file functions, and let's add this to our ever-growing list of functions. Let's see, there is add term, so we will put the update after that. And we have the original term. Let's just use that. And then we will have new term, and then definition. And of course, the first thing we want to do is retrieve our items. And then we want to essentially do what we did for the get term. We want to loop over our terms and find the term that we are going to edit. So let's copy and let's paste that in. And let's change the name of this variable to terms, because that's what we had in the loop. And then we want to modify our check here. We were originally just checking for what was supplied to the function, and we still want to do that. But we want to check if the term is equal to original term. That way we know that we have the item that we want to edit. So we will just say item, and we will say term equals the new term, and we will essentially do the same thing for the definition. So let's copy and paste. And once we're done with that, we can break out of the loop by saying break. Because if we have a match and we update that, there's no need for us to keep going through that loop. We're done. So we will break out, and then we want to set data, and we will pass in our terms. So that should work. Now's the moment of truth. I don't remember if there is the hidden field, so let's refresh. Let's change the text there, and let's add edited to the definition. That way we can see that we both edited the term and the definition. Let's click on edit. That takes us back to our index. We see that the term was changed to JSON1. The definition includes that edited. So we now can create and edit our terms. Now we just need to be able to delete a term as well as protect the admin section. And we will get started with that in the next lesson.